Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. We've got a fun little 6-game slate here on Wednesday night as the NBA season is coming to a close rapidly here. Most teams just 2 or 3 games left. In this one, we are taking a look at a couple of Eastern Conference juggernauts, I guess you'd say. The Celtics headed to Chicago, taking on the Bulls as favorites. So we'll take a look at some of the best bets in this one. Nate has his great article up on playpicks.com with some best bets and player props in there for you. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We got a couple other videos up for you today, including that player props video. We'll look to stay hot with you guys on this week. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's jump into it.
I'm not a gullible or even a gullah calf to think that the Bulls are a East Coast juggernaut. No, they've been terrible lately. They've actually lost 21 of their last 23 as underdogs, and they're on a back-to-back here after getting swept in the season by Milwaukee. They are plus 7.5 at home. With that total at 222.5 in Boston. I mean, in favor of Boston. Yeah, 5 other games on the slate tonight. We got, injury news is going to be flying in here as a lot of teams are on back-to-backs and the season is coming to a close. As you said, a lot of teams have their playoff position locked up right now. The Mavs are minus 8.5 at Detroit. Knicks, the Nets just went down to minus 4.5 at the Knicks, and we do break that game down for you in a different video. I'm not seeing anyone ruled out for the Nets, but maybe it's just the thought that they haven't been covering. So yeah, we will account for that in our game video. Go ahead and give that a watch, see what we think. Wizards are plus 10.5 at Atlanta. The Thunder plus 17 at the Jazz after reaching new heights in terms of trying to tank by benching even their backups last night against Portland. And then the Suns are down to plus 1 at the Clippers. They opened minus 3, but it seems like odds makers expect Phoenix to start resting a few guys with the number 1 seed completely locked up and a franchise record wins locked up. Celtics still very much in jockeying for playoff position here. Only a half game separates them, Milwaukee and Philly, in that 2-3-4 spot. And you almost don't want the 2 seed if you're worried about facing the Nets. But, I mean, now it seems like the Nets are going to be the 8 because they are going to be 9 or 10, and then they can't get the 7 seed. And in any case, I mean, Celtics are not ducking anybody, or so they say. They've just been handling all comers. The Bulls might want to think about where they wind up because they certainly don't want to face Milwaukee the way they've lost 4 straight to the Bucks. Right now, they're basically in that position. As long as Toronto continues its stretch, the Bulls are going to fall to 6th, and Milwaukee right now sitting at 3rd. But I don't know what they're going to do in terms of trying to ask Zach LaVine to play through knee soreness. As part of the reason they came up completely short against the Bucks, which we nailed. Nice boost when Zach LaVine was a late scratch due to knee soreness. But once again, they had no answers for the Bucks, and they couldn't score outside of DeRozan getting 40 points. They still were down about 20 by the end of the third quarter there because they can't hit threes. And this is the modern NBA. They're hitting 9 threes at a 29% clip in their last 3 home games here. We talked about it in the episode yesterday. They hadn't played at home at all. They get home, and all of a sudden the offense gets better, 117 points per game or so. Defense gets way worse, and now they've gone over in 3 straight against the Clippers and gave up 127 to both Miami and Milwaukee, going over there as well. Boston is certainly capable of getting you 127 here if you're gunning for an over. They're averaging 125, over their last 9 with a 129 offensive rating, gone over in 8 of those 9 games. Scorching from downtown because they share the ball so well, 30 assists per game, 16.5 threes at a 43% clip. Chicago is allowing 43% from 3 during these 3 home games. Celtics not much let up on the road, still getting 119 while winning 7 of their last 9 roadies. But for me, it's about the Bulls being able to score with teams when they're home. Again, they're fourth in offensive rating at home versus 19th on the road. You look at the home road splits since January over the last 2 months or so, even more noticeable. They're scoring 116 at home versus 109. Pace is 2.7 possessions faster. And they go over at the highest rate when they have this rest disadvantage. They're 10-5 to the over in that spot. Also 7-4 to the over as home dogs. Also went over in both games with the Celtics so far this season. So I like some points here. Celtics, obviously Rob Williams still out, so their defense has been a little less incredible, to say the least. I mean, they have a 115 defensive rating in 6 games now without Rob Will. So I think we'll get enough points here. I like the Celtics money line with that over. Not really trying to mess with the spread, even though it's certainly possible that the Bulls once again get crushed by a top 8 team. They're now 1-18, I believe, against the top 8 in the NBA.
And that's what you need to know. It's a very large spread tonight for a game that, I don't know, think about what this spread would look like January 1st of this year, maybe January 5th of this year, not even that long ago. Two months ago, the spread might be -7.5 for Chicago, the way that they were playing versus the way Boston was playing. And that's when everything changed for both of these teams, essentially. Chicago kept it going almost up until the All-Star break. And then after the All-Star break, it was just, we all called it. I mean, they had like the third hardest schedule in the league. Zach LaVine missed time. DDR missed time / came back to earth from scoring 38 a game over like a 10-game span. And you know, Vooch has been Vooch, man. Like, he is what he is at this point. His 3-point shooting is down a bit. Obviously, that's hurting. There's possibilities for him to regress back to the mean upwards over the course of the next year, into next season. But this year's been a total disaster for him from that standpoint. That's something they were really, really relying on in terms of that 3-point shooting, which, as you mentioned, it's not even that it's not good for them. It's just not even existent. They're just not even pulling them. And that's a huge problem, because even if you're not, you know, if you're shooting threes and you're not making them in the NBA, in the modern NBA, as you say, at least you have you're a threat, right? And you're keeping the other team honest. But at this point, you can just pack it into the paint. The Celtics, that's the only spot on the floor that they're not elite at on defense, is stopping the 3-point shot, right? They're not in the top 15 in that. However, they are in the top 5, if you will, in pretty much every relevant category other than that, especially over the course of the last 2.5 months, as I said, when they started turning it on. But as of late, something we've been talking about when we bring up the Celtics is that their offense has gone ballistic, right? And that's the thing that I think we're both saying tonight that you can count on is 221.5. I do think the Bulls come along for the ride at least enough, right, to get them to this over of 220. I do see this as maybe 115, 116 for the Celtics, and winning right around that spread, to be honest, but enough to get you over 220. It's up about 220.5 right now, depending where you're finding it. So I would rather just attack that than anything else at this point. The Celtics, they lost Rob Will a few games ago. They're still a very, very good team, destroying obviously bad teams like the Wizards and the Pacers over the course of their last 2. I think that Heat loss was pretty telling for how well the Celtics are going to be able to play against the elite teams in the East without him into the playoffs. Hopefully he comes back. But once again, this is the Bulls playing an elite team. And this is a situation where if the Bulls aren't playing somebody that they're clearly better than, essentially, nobody should feel comfortable taking them to cover or to win for sure. But I do think there's the opportunity for points tonight as we talk about the Celtics. The only game that they haven't scored at least 113 points or so over the course of their last, roughly, you mentioned those 9 games, is in that Heat game that was sort of a come to Jesus for them when Rob Will was not there for the first time and they had to figure out how to play without him. Since then, we're talking about Chicago is not Miami on defense for sure. And I think over 221.5 feels way, way too low right now. And that's definitely my favorite bet in this one.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Heat game, because that's really the only team that's been able to stop what the Celtics do, what the Jays do in terms of that kind of weave they run and then get to the rim. Bam actually frightens them at the rim. Tatum doesn't know what to do around him at the rims there, but he has some poor numbers against the Bulls in these 2 games. They still went over. But I think Tatum will have a great game tonight. I mean, he's expected to go over 28.5 points. You can get 6 assists in a win. He's had 6 dimes in 5 of his last 6. But I mean, the way the Celtics share the ball, and you mentioned Vooch, he is not Bam Adebayo, but he might be the polar opposite in terms of being able to move your feet and deny people at the rim. I mean, the Celtics will be able to get him in rotation and just get whatever shot they want, basically. I mean, I don't think they're going to miss Rob Will as much in this matchup. Maybe they will defensively. I mean, Vooch should get his, but again, that's good news for the over. And I mean, it's not out of the question they cover this spread, to say the least. I mean, they've won their last 4 road games by 18.5 points. 13.5 points per game on the season is their margin of victory, as they're 14-7 against the spread as road favorites. Also 8-5 against the spread with a rest advantage. So yeah, going against a tired Bulls team, that's going to be, need to gun for a win here. I will again bring up, though, that they just have not been able to win unexpected games at all. 3-9 in their last 12 versus East Conference playoff teams. 2-21 in their last 23 as underdogs, and the only 2 wins against Cleveland, which is also backsliding in that span. Really have not beaten a quality team in their conference in months. And so, I mean, Celtics to win, it would be stunning if they don't win this game. And I also feel really good about the over here. I feel pretty confident all around about this game.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, look, Tatum actually doesn't have the best numbers against the Bulls over the course of the last, dating back to last season, essentially. His prop tonight, it's definitely a lot higher than what he's been scoring against them. It's kind of wild to see his game log versus Chicago going back to last year. He did have 23 and 12 rebounds in the last time that they played earlier in January. But before that, we're talking about 29 points, 14 points, and 24 points against them. Like I said, dating back to last year. I think you consider a couple other guys in here as well. Jalen. Yeah, I want to find a way to get one of these player performance doubles for the C's. Whether or not they win by 8 tonight, they're going to win, in my opinion, and a pretty strong opinion at that. So I would try to find something. Like I said, I really wanted to take a Tatum there. He just doesn't have the numbers to support it against the Bulls. It's scaring me off of that with those high totals for him tonight, because his performance double on FanDuel right now, the only one I'm considering super highly, it's either 32 points in a win, maybe 6 assists in a win, but there might also be some opportunity to hit Jalen tonight, where 25 in a win for him gets you about plus 180 on your money. So something like that is kind of where I'm looking as well, rather than trying to tease this game or anything to that effect. I would take a Celtics parlay with the money line and the over for the C's on that one, or like I said, maybe just a player performance double that you can find if you like one of these Celtics players tonight on offense. And that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Check out those other couple videos we have up for you tonight. And until we see you next, happy betting.